Veni, veni, Immanuel, captivum solve Israel, qui gemit in exilio, privatus Dei filio, gaude, gaude, Immanuel, nascetur pro te Israel.
Microphone on. It is Christmas season, time to celebrate the birth of Christ, and we look back to that Old Testament prophecy in Isaiah, and we'll look at that today. We'll read that verse again several times today about the coming of the Christ. O come, all you Immanuel. I cannot speak this morning. Come, ransom captive Israel. The people weren't captive at that point, but the Assyrians were attacking. The Assyrians were a threat, and the people of Israel were worried. They were concerned. King Ahaz was worried. He was concerned. He's so worried and concerned that he considered partnerships with other kings and kingdoms to secure himself, to secure his kingdom. But God said to Judah and God said to King Ahaz, don't do that. Rely on me. Trust in me. And Ahaz refused. And God even sent the prophet to Ahaz and said to Ahaz, hey, look, I want you to know I am with you. I want you to know I've got your back. I want you to know you can trust in me. So ask me for a sign and I will give you a sign. Now, there's been 1,000 times at least in my life where I've said, God, give me a sign. Okay? And sometimes God has given me a sign. Sometimes he hasn't. Sometimes he has. But I've never said to God like Ahaz did, because Ahaz said to God, oh, I'm not going to ask you for a sign. Like, what? God says, ask me. You should give him. But God said this. He said, you didn't ask, but I'll give you a sign. A virgin will give birth to a child, and his name will be called Immanuel. And then Matthew repeats that, finds it so important that he repeats it, Immanuel, and then translates it so everybody understands. God is with us, or God with us. Important thing for us to think about. Important thing for us to consider. And we're going to look this month, this week and the next 3 weeks after this, are all going to be about how God is with us and how that provides us hope, how that provides us joy, how that provides us peace, and how that enables us to have the gift of love and to give the gift of love as well. An important part of our lives, an important part of who we are. Oh God, come, Immanuel. He needs to ransom us as well, and he will. Let's pray before we move on. Father, I thank you again that we can celebrate this season of Jesus' birth. Father, that it was such a significant, important part of our history because it became the time where we were no longer bound by the law, but we were bound by your grace, your love for us. So we thank you that we can celebrate this time. As we look into the scriptures today, Father, help us to take something away with us that will help us to grow in our relationship with you, to help us to trust you more, to help us just to have the confidence and the power of knowing you are with us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right. Important to remember God is with us. But let me ask you a question. When is it easiest to remember God is with you? Some of you are like, I don't understand the question. That's good, okay? Because I want to explain it a little bit more. That's why I asked it so vaguely. Here's the deeper question. Is it easier to feel the presence of God Is it easier to feel God is with us when you're on the high times or the mountaintops, as we say? Or when you're going through trouble and low times, maybe in the valleys? For me, it's easier when I'm on the mountaintop. When I'm in the valleys, sometimes I'll feel like, God, are you there? Are you paying attention? Are you listening? Are you seeing what's going on? And maybe you kind of feel the same way at different times. I wrote in my notes a couple of stories, a couple of things I thought about this, and I was trying to think about, I want to give you some stories about my life where maybe I was on a mountaintop, then all of a sudden I hit a valley. And there's a couple really whoppers. But I have to be honest with you, I'm not comfortable in sharing those with you right in this situation. Because they involve other people and other things, and I don't want to go there. But there were a couple of things I thought about. I thought about when I graduated from high school and went to my high school celebration, my graduation ceremony. There was a school-sponsored party at the bowling alley that night and everything else. Got done with all that and found out that my mom immediately needed to leave to go to my grandparents because my grandfather had died. On a high, on a celebration, and hit with something hard and down on a low. That's the way life does it sometimes. I also thought about just a few years ago, about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, where during that time, and I have allergies, by the way, the doctor told me, so I just don't want any of you to think that you're going to get sick because of me. But about 10, 11 years ago, there was a church that Nancy and I decided to go visit one Sunday morning. And it was a church that I had known ever since I had been in Taipei and Taiwan. And kind of, just for some reason, it always just kind of interested me. And every time I went by it, I kind of look at it in different things. And I was like, I'd like to go visit church there because I never have been to church there. So we went to go visit church there. And during that time, when Nancy and I went to go visit, Jonathan wasn't here yet. Joshua was a baby. He was little. And I didn't have a job. And I had been seeking God out, searching God. I said, God, what, do you want me to ministry? What do you want me to do? How do you want me to do things? And we go into that church that day, and we sit down, and we listen to the message. The pastor preached the message and everything. Then when he's done with the message, he announced to the church that was his last Sunday. And I went, what? He said, this is my last Sunday. And I thought, maybe this is what God has in store for me. So, talked to Nancy about it, told her I wanted to apply to the church. She said, oh, yeah, that's a great thing. Let's apply to the church. So, put my resume together, got a packet together, they actually published that they were going to start a search committee, but before they started the search committee, they were accepting resumes and everything else already. So I put everything together, and a few weeks later, we went back to that church again. And so that week we went in church. They got up and announced that week at the end of the church service, one of the elders got up and announced that they had formed a search committee. He was going to lead the search committee, who the search committee was, and that they were accepting resumes. So afterwards, I immediately went up to him, and I handed him my package, and I said, here, I'd like to apply for the pastor position. And he said, oh, thank you. A couple of weeks went by and didn't hear anything from them. Not even an acknowledgement that they'd gotten my information. A couple more weeks went by. We'll go to church one Sunday and to check things out in church that day. And there was a guy preaching, a guest pastor preaching, and this elder got up and announced that he was their new pastor. Not the elder, but the guy that was preaching that day. That they had decided to hire him as pastor. Now, I have to admit, I was a little bit hard to take because I thought this is what God had wanted for me. So, but I was like, okay, obviously God's got something better. Remember, that's what our parents always told us. My mom was, God doesn't provide this, he's going to provide something better, right? So I was like, okay, God, you got something better for me. So a little bit more time went by, and there was another church here in Taiwan. Again, smaller church. Again, it was a church that I visited a few times before. We liked the church. We liked the fellowship there. We liked the people there. And then they needed a new pastor. So I applied there. And they were excited. The search committee was excited. They met with me, talked with me, interviewed with them a couple of times, talked with other people. They were all excited about it. And everything was good. They came and had me preach. They liked my preaching. They liked that. It was all good. They came and had me do a retreat weekend. They liked my teaching. I was like, wow, I can't believe this. People still like me after meeting me that many times, but they were still like me. And talking to the search committee and everything else, and everything was very, very positive. And then we were about to leave to go to the U.S. to go see my parents. And right before I left, they called me and they said, hey, we want to talk to you about the pastor position. And I thought, well, how am I going to explain to them I'm going to be gone for the next 2 months, and so we need to delay until I start? And that was my thoughts. But when they called me, they said, well, we decided to hire somebody else. And I was just kind of like, huh? And I didn't say that on the phone, but inside I'm like, what? What's going on here? I said, okay. I said, I did say, I thought things were going well. Can you tell me what the reason was that you decided you didn't want to hire me? And I got the weirdest response I'd ever heard. Here's what they said. We're a young church. Us leaders, we don't have much experience. We're young in our faith. You've got too much experience and you're very spiritually mature. We want somebody that's young and will learn and grow with us. I'm like, okay. So that's what they hired and that's what they got. Okay, and they ended up with troubles. That first church that I talked about that same time, they were running into troubles with the pastor they hired, only just like 3 or 4 months later, 5 months later. And someone in the church, because we still visited that church, still tried to support that pastor they hired, tried to be there, somebody in that church said to Nancy, and it was one of the church leaders, why didn't I apply to the church? It's like, what? Why didn't you apply to church? So Nancy came and got me and had me talk to this woman and one of the leaders of the church. We ended up talking with another couple one of them was actually on the pastoral search team. Found out nobody had ever gotten my resume. Nobody knew I applied to the church because the man I handed this stuff to that day decided he wanted his friend to be the pastor, not me. So he didn't even tell people that I'd applied. Now, I hit a low at that point. I was like, God, what is wrong? Are you there? Are you watching what's going on? This is supposed to be a Christian organization. We're supposed to do things the right way, and these people are not doing right things. I am in Taiwan because I think you want me in Taiwan. I am doing ministry because I think you want me to do ministry. But yet here I am. I don't have a job. I don't have cash. I don't even have a prospect for a job at that point. What am I going to do? My resources are running out. My time's running out. God, I've got to do something. And I started talking to God about it. But I was wondering, God, what's going to happen here? The people of Israel, being oppressed by the Assyrians, being oppressed by other nations, attacked constantly, being starved out, because Jerusalem was a hard city to break into. It was a hard city to conquer, but you could surround the city and prevent foods and goods from getting into the city. God, where are you? God, we're here. And God gave Israel that promise at that point and said, there will come a king. God is with you. God will take care of your needs. God will help you in your moment of desperation. God will provide all you need. God is with us. So I continued to pray about my situation. By that time, we were in the U.S. And I can remember actually where I was sitting and I was praying one afternoon, and I was just like, God, listen, here's the deal, God. I think I'm supposed to be in Taiwan. I think I'm supposed to be doing ministry there. I think all this is happening. But God, If something doesn't come up soon, I'm probably going to have to move my family to the U.S. because I can have better chances of being employed in the U.S. Well, 1 or 2 days later, I got an email. And the email said, hey, would you be interested in teaching school in Taiwan, in a private school, teaching science to elementary kids? I responded to the email, and I said, yeah, I would be interested in that. Here's the thing. God said to me that afternoon that I was praying, let me take care of it. I am here. I hear you. I will answer you. And especially because of how the email got to me through the channels, I think it was God at work saying, I'm here. I'm with you. I hear you need, a job. I hear you need money to provide for your family. So I'm going to provide this for you. Now, in my mind, I thought, great. Because, if I got churches that won't hire me because I got too much experience and I'm too spiritually mature, that makes sense. If I got churches that don't hire me because one person, derails the process and doesn't trust God but trusts his own instinct, maybe I don't want to be a part. Maybe I just want to be a lay person in a church. Go volunteer. So I got the job teaching school. That church, that first church I told you about, that I hired somebody else. We still liked the church and we liked the people there, so we were going there most of the time. And I would tell the new pastor before he had troubles and different things. I'd even tell him, and even tell him after that. I'm here to help. You want me to teach a Sunday school class? I'll teach a Sunday school class. You want me to, if you need somebody to preach every once in a while for you, I'll do that for you. And kept telling him, I'm volunteering to help. And they kept having more and more problems with him and more difficulties with him. And he never would, he never would take me up on anything. And then I came to Glory Church. And I came to Glory Church because of a couple of friends. Alex was one of those friends. Not Alec. Alex was one of those friends. Stephen was one of those people that brought me here because I had come and preached here before when there was an independent English ministry here that was going on. And Jessica was part of that time too, okay? And I came here and I started serving. And I knew this is what God had put me through. God had made me go through those valleys so that I'd be willing to serve him, so that I'd be appreciative of what he has given to me. And we talk about God is with us. This is some of the things that we need to think about. Because when that day, again, when I sat down and prayed, and I finished praying, and I just had a peace, I had a hope of knowing God would take care of it. Every step along the way since then. At first, when I first came, I don't know if some of you were around then, but I taught at the school, and I did this both at the same time. And then the opportunity became, after a couple of years, because the school decided they didn't want to renew my contract, that I got to do this full time. God has provided every step because he is with us. He trusts in us. And maybe you're going through some things that you're just like, God, are you there? Because in the middle of that time, I didn't question my faith, but it was just like, God, this struggle, it's hard. And maybe you're struggling because of family relationships or work relationships. Maybe you're struggling because you don't know what the future is going to look like. I'm here right now, but where am I going to be 5 years from now? Where am I going to be 10 years from now? Okay? Maybe you're struggling because, something with your kids. Sometimes I look at my kids and think, wow, I've really got to trust God with them. Because it was up to me, I'd wrap them up in plastic bubbles and stick them in the corner so they wouldn't get hurt and nothing would happen to them. But then I know that's not good for them either. But we have to trust God in all things. And sometimes maybe we just feel alone. You can be in the middle of a marriage and you can feel alone. You can be in the middle of a group of friends and you can feel alone. or maybe even fit to rob you. And so when you went to Jerusalem, one of the things you did was you went with a group, because the group offered you protection. The group helped you to get there. The group helped you to have hope in the destination of where you're going. And so he said, blessed are those strength is in you, whose strength is in God, who is willing to undertake this task. Okay? It says, as they pass through the valley of Baca. Now, Baca it's not the name of a valley itself, but Baca is probably a tree. And most commentators agree it's a tree. Sometimes it's called the weeping tree. There was a couple other names for it. The tree of grief. They had to go through these places to get to where they wanted to go. Go back to this verse. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, who set their hearts on the pilgrim of God. See, blessed are those whose strength is in him, because we are created to depend on God. And we're created to depend on others. And God says it's not a weakness to say, I need your help, God. It's not a weakness to say to others, I need your help. He is there with us. He commands us to meet together as a church. You know why? It's not. That's one of the reasons I don't like Facebook. Well, all that ads, all the stupid things people post, and then when people do post real things, a lot of it is negative. Have you noticed that? Okay. You know, I went to the restaurant. The waiter dropped this on me and everything. Oh, well, who cares? Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Sorry for my friends, okay? But I'd get rid of all that. And if I listen to a song, not AC/DC, but listen to like a religious song, a worship song, something that's uplifting, something that's in the middle of the United States. There's a state called Kansas. In the middle of Kansas, there's an interstate called I-70, 4-lane highway. And there's parts of I-70 because it's so flat, and there's a few rolling hills, but then you get, the further west you get, the flatter it gets, that you can literally look out miles and kilometers in front of you and see the road in front of you and see that it doesn't turn any direction. It is just straight. But one of the things that happens if you're driving through western Kansas, as you're driving through western Kansas, you get to a point on that highway when you look in front of you, you no longer just see a horizon, but you start to see the top of the Rocky Mountains. You start to see Pikes Peak and some other peaks in Colorado. And as they pass through the valley again, okay? Now, the other thing about this trip, as they passed through the valley, they knew there was that spring there. They knew they were going to pass by that tree in the valley of Baca. And one of the things about it was they set their minds to go there. What happens when we set our minds on God? God says what? You will be found by me, right? Look at these next few verses. Verses they're probably familiar to. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock on the door and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, he who seeks finds, and to him and knocks the door will be open. God says, I'm with you. Seek me out and I'll be right there. You'll find me. Okay? to trust in God in the valleys. See, that's why the valleys are there. Because they test us, they help us to grow, they help us to trust God more and more with each day. Sometimes when Nancy and I talk, one of the things I tell her is, she'll say, well, how's it easy for you to trust in God in this? And I say, well, because I've been through it many times. That's why. And that's what happens. We trust God more in those valleys. Now, I on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. For those of us who are believers, God has you in his hand. Jesus told us in John chapter 10 that basically that we're in the palm of his hand. And the way I like to think of it, because he says that we're also in the Father's hand, is that we're in Jesus' hand, and then God the Father's hand is on top of that hand. And they're saying, there's no way I'm going to let you go. I am with you. I have you. You're mine. That's the message of the Christmas story. The message of the Christmas story that God said, you are mine. I love you. God is with us. Even when we don't know it. Even when we don't feel like it. He is with us. But we need to take that step. Put our faith, our trust in him. Even as believers, we need to go back and we need to constantly say, God, I need to become stronger and stronger in my faith. And to trust God in those things. We revel in God in the good times. And we draw closer to him in the hard times. But no matter where we are, Immanuel, God is with us. There's going to be a video.
Son of God appear. Rejoice, rejoice, Immanuel shall come to thee, holy Israel. Oh, come thou day spring, come and cheer our spirit.